I've always believed that a house should feel alive, that its walls should breathe with the energy of those who live within them. That's why, every few years I find myself moving furniture around, painting walls, changing curtains, replacing the old with something new. I crave change. It feeds my creativity. My son, Lucas, has grown used to this about me, and if he ever thought it was exhausting, he never let it show. Now, at 42, I was ready for something bigger. A full home renovation. Not just a simple rearrangement of the living room, but a complete transformation. New flooring, new kitchen counters, fresh colors on the walls, even a new layout in some places. It was ambitious, maybe even unnecessary, but I could already see the finished result in my mind, and that was all the reason I needed. "You're sure about this, Mom?" Lucas asked, standing with his arms crossed, surveying the living room like a contractor preparing for battle. Smiled. "Of course. We've been here for over a decade. This house deserves a fresh start." He exhaled through his nose, but there was a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "You just like tearing things apart so you can put them back together." I laughed, reaching up to ruffle his thick, dark hair, something he had barely tolerated as a kid and now, at 18, still pretended to hate. "And you love helping me." He didn't argue, 'cause it was true. Lucas had always supported my ideas, no matter how impractical they seemed at first. He grew up watching me sketch floor plans on napkins, comparing wallpaper swatches, and filling our garage with half-finished DIY projects. When other kids spent their weekends gaming or hanging out, he was with me at hardware stores, helping me pick out materials. He had an eye for detail and a patience that balanced my restless energy. It was something I adored about him. This time, though, something felt different. As we made lists of what needed to be changed, I caught myself watching him more closely. There was a shift in his presence, something subtle yet undeniable. He was still the same Lucas I had raised, kind, dependable, quick to smile, but lately I had noticed small things. The way his gaze lingered on me when he thought I wasn't looking. The way his voice softened when he spoke to me, lower, almost careful. And then there was the way he stood close, much closer than before. I told myself I was imagining it. We had always been close, always shared an easy, natural bond. Maybe I was overanalyzing things because of how fast time was moving. He was no longer my little boy, following me around with a toy hammer. He was 18, nearly grown, taller than me now, stronger too. Maybe it was just my own discomfort with change that made me feel as though something unspoken was hanging in the air between us. Shaking the thought away, I returned to our planning. "We'll start with the walls," I said, tapping my finger against the blueprint I had drawn. "I want something warm but not too dark." Lucas nodded, leaning over the table beside me, his shoulder nearly brushing mine. "I still think deep green would look great in the study." Hummed. "Maybe." "What about the living room?" "Something soft, cozy," he said, eyes thoughtful. "You spend the most time here, so it should feel comfortable." I blinked, surprised. "You think about that?" His lips quirked into a small smile. "Of course. I want you to like it." Something about the way he said it made warmth bloom in my chest. He had always been thoughtful, but this was different. There was a new depth to his attention, an awareness that I didn't quite know how to name. We spent the next few hours listing supplies, discussing flooring options, and measuring spaces. As the sun dipped lower, bathing the room in a golden glow, I looked up from my notes to find Lucas watching me again. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes that made my breath hitch for just a second. "Mom." His voice was gentle. Cleared my throat. You sure you're not taking on too much?" His brows knitted together, concern etched across his face. "You always do this. You get excited about a project and don't stop until you burn yourself out." I smiled softly. "I'm fine, Lucas. It makes me happy." "I know," he murmured, but his gaze didn't waver. For a brief moment, I felt something shift in the air again. Something silent, something I wasn't ready to acknowledge. Then he reached out, tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. It was such a small thing. Innocent. Thoughtful. But for the first time since starting this project, I felt something else stir beneath the surface. And I wasn't sure what to do about it. The morning sun streamed through the windows, casting soft golden light over the room, illuminating the half-painted walls. The scent of fresh paint filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of coffee from the kitchen. Today was the day we'd finally put some color back into our home, and I couldn't have been more excited. Lucas stood beside me, arms crossed, surveying the room with a look of quiet concentration. He had tied his hair back, a habit he had recently picked up when working. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing strong forearms already dusted with specks of white primer. I, on the other hand, was wearing my oldest clothes, knowing very well that by the end of the day, I'd probably be covered in paint. "All right," I said, stretching my arms before picking up a roller. "Ready to bring some life into this place?" Lucas smirked, picking up his own roller. "Ready when you are, boss." We dipped our rollers into the trays, the thick, smooth paint clinging to the fibers. I swiped the first stroke across the wall, watching as the color spread like a breath of fresh air. Lucas followed, his movements more precise, more controlled. He had always been more patient than me, taking his time with every task. At first, we worked in silence, focusing on our strokes, making sure the paint covered evenly. The rhythm of the rollers sliding up and down, the occasional drip hitting the tarp below. It was almost soothing. But of course I couldn't stay serious for long. "Hey!" I called over my shoulder, peeking at Lucas. "You missed a spot." He turned to look, brows furrowed. "Where?" I flicked my paintbrush towards him, sending a tiny speck of color onto his arm. He looked down, then back at me, eyes narrowing. "Oh, so that's how it's gonna be." I grinned, holding my brush up like a sword. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Before I could react, he dipped his fingers into the paint tray and swiped a streak across my cheek. I gasped, touching my face in mock horror. "Lucas!" He laughed, his deep chuckle filling the room. "You started it." "Oh, it's on now." I grabbed a handful of paint with my gloved fingers and smacked it lightly onto his forearm, leaving a messy imprint. He feigned shock before retaliating, dabbing a bit onto my nose. What started as a small prank quickly escalated into a full-blown battle. We abandoned our rollers, laughing as we chased each other around the room. Lucas caught my wrist mid-throw, spinning me around playfully, leaving a streak of blue on my shoulder. "Now you look like an artist," he said, amusement dancing in his eyes. "Oh yeah." I swiped my fingers across his forehead. "Now you do too." We both paused, breathing heavily, paint smudged across our skin, our clothes ruined beyond repair. The room was a mess, but at that moment I couldn't have cared less. The laughter between us, the way we played like kids again, it was perfect. Lucas was still holding my wrist, his grip warm, firm and steady. His smile softened as he looked at me, his fingers brushing against mine before slowly letting go. "You look good like this," he said suddenly. I tilted my head. "Like what?" "Covered in paint." He chuckled, shaking his head. "No, just happy." Something in his voice made my breath hitch. There was sincerity in his tone, something deeper than just a casual compliment. His eyes lingered on me, searching, as if he wanted to say more but held himself back. I swallowed, my heart unexpectedly pounding against my ribs. "Well, I am happy." Lucas smiled, but there was something behind it, something quiet, something unreadable. He reached out, tucking a strand of my hair behind my ear, his fingers barely grazing my skin. It was such a simple gesture, yet it sent a warmth through me that I couldn't quite explain. "You should laugh like that more often," he murmured. I looked away, my cheeks heating, whether from his words or the physical exertion, I wasn't sure. Clearing my throat, I attempted to bring us back to the task at hand. "We made a mess," I said, gesturing to the room, my voice lighter than I felt. "I don't think this was part of the renovation plan." Lucas smirked, stepping back and surveying the damage. "Nah, I think it's an improvement." I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't help but smile. "Come on. Let's clean up before this paint dries on everything." We spent the next hour wiping down the floor, washing the paint off our arms and faces. Every now and then, I'd catch Lucas looking at me, that same unreadable expression flickering in his gaze. And I knew, deep down, something between us had shifted. The walls of the living room gleamed with fresh color, the air still thick with the scent of drying paint. Despite our little paint battle, the room had turned out beautiful, warm, inviting, exactly how I had envisioned it. My muscles ached from the hours of work, but the satisfaction of seeing it all come together made the exhaustion feel almost pleasant. Lucas wiped his hands on a rag, stepping back to admire our work. "Not bad," he mused, tilting his head slightly. "I think we make a good team." I smirked, brushing a stray curl from my forehead. "We always do." He turned his gaze to me then, his expression softer. "You've been working non-stop," he said. "Why don't you take a break? I'll make us something to eat." I blinked, taken aback. "You? Cooking?" He chuckled, rolling his eyes. "Yes, me. I know my way around the kitchen, you know." "Since when?" Tease. "Since I started paying attention," he countered smoothly. The thought of Lucas cooking for me was unexpected, but undeniably sweet. He had always been thoughtful, but this felt different, more deliberate. I was still processing it when he suddenly stepped closer, his fingers brushing against my arm lightly before he leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. "Rest," he murmured against my skin, the warmth of his breath sending an unexpected shiver down my spine. Then, as if nothing had happened, he turned and walked toward the kitchen, leaving me standing there, completely still, my heart hammering in my chest. I lifted my hand to the spot where his lips had just been. It wasn't unusual for Lucas to be affectionate. He had always been caring in his own way, but something about that kiss felt different. I told myself I was overthinking it, that I was just tired, that the emotions of the long day were making me read into things. Shaking off the thought, I decided to use the time to do something productive. Since the room was nearly finished, I figured I'd take out some old clothes I had stored under the bed and sort through them, see what I wanted to keep, what I wanted to donate. It was something I had been meaning to do for months but had always put off. I moved to the bedroom, kneeling down beside the bed, reaching blindly beneath it. I pulled out one box, then another, until my hand grazed something soft. An old sweater. Curious, I leaned in further, trying to get a better grip on it. But as I reached deeper under the bed, something shifted. The mattress frame, maybe, or one of the boxes. Before I could react, my shoulder slipped into the tight space, and in an instant I was stuck. "Seriously?" I muttered, twisting my body slightly, but that only made it worse. My upper half was wedged beneath the bed while my legs were awkwardly sprawled behind me. I tried pushing myself backward, but the angle was all wrong. "Lucas!" I called out, my voice muffled against the mattress above me. No response. I sighed. He was probably too focused on whatever he was cooking to hear me. I tried again, a little louder this time. "Lucas! I need your help." Still nothing. I groaned, dropping my forehead against the floor. Of all the things that could have happened, getting stuck under the bed was definitely not something I had anticipated. Well, there was no way I was getting out on my own. I'd just have to wait for him to come looking for me. The minutes stretched on, and I could hear the distant sounds of the kitchen. Pans clinking, cabinet doors opening and closing. Whatever he was making, it smelled incredible. Too bad I was currently trapped. I huffed out a small laugh at the ridiculousness of it all. Here I was, a grown woman, stuck under a bed like some clumsy child. And all because I couldn't resist the urge to clean. I lay there, listening to the distant hum of the stove, my mind wandering. I thought about the past few days. The way Lucas had been more attentive, the way he had looked at me, the way he had touched me. His fingers lingering just a moment longer than necessary. The way he had kissed my forehead just now, so gently, so intimately. A warmth spread through me at the memory. This closeness between us, this shift, was something I couldn't ignore anymore. And maybe I didn't want to. Just then I heard footsteps approaching. "Mom!" Lucas's voice carried through the hallway. "In here," I called. A second later, he appeared in the doorway, his brows furrowing in confusion as he took in my position. What are you doing?" I sighed dramatically. "What does it look like? I'm stuck." His lips twitched. His eyes filled with amusement. "You're stuck? Under the bed?" "Yes," I grumbled. "And instead of laughing, maybe you could help me?" He crossed his arms over his chest, clearly enjoying this far too much. "How exactly did this happen?" Huff. I was trying to pull something out and I leaned in too far. Now my shoulders wedged, and I can't get the right leverage to push myself out. Lucas shook his head, chuckling as he knelt beside me. All right. Let's get you out of there." He placed a hand on my back, his touch firm yet careful. "Try to move your arm, see if you can shift it a little." I attempted to wiggle free but only succeeded in making myself more stuck. I groaned in frustration. Lucas's hand slid to my waist. "Hold still," he murmured. Froze. His fingers pressed lightly against my side, and I suddenly became hyper-aware of how close we were, of the warmth of his touch. He gripped my waist firmly, his strength apparent as he gently maneuvered me backward. "There we go," he said, his voice low. "Almost out." A moment later, with one final tug, I was free. I exhaled sharply as I sat up, rubbing my shoulder. "Thank you." Lucas sat back on his heels, smirking. "You're welcome. Though I have to say, this was one of the more ridiculous things I've had to save you from." I shot him a look. "Oh, hush." He grinned but didn't move away. Instead, he reached up, brushing a stray bit of dust from my hair. His touch was soft, his fingers grazing my temple before sliding away. I swallowed, my heart stuttering. "Come on," he said after a beat, his voice quieter now. "Food's ready." I nodded, standing up, but my legs felt oddly unsteady beneath me. As we walked toward the kitchen, I could still feel the ghost of his touch on my waist, the warmth of his fingers lingering long after they were gone. And I knew, deep in my bones, that something between us had changed forever. The smell of something delicious filled the kitchen as I followed Lucas in, still dusting myself off from my ridiculous misadventure under the bed. My shoulder was a little sore, but honestly, the embarrassment of the situation was worse than any ache. Lucas had set the table with 2 plates, and the sight of it made my chest tighten. He had really gone out of his way. It was such a simple thing, cooking for me, but the gesture felt deeper, more personal than I could fully grasp. I slid into my chair, eyeing the meal. "All right, Chef Lucas, what have you prepared for us?" He smirked, placing a plate in front of me. "Just something simple. You like these, don't you?" It was a grilled sandwich, perfectly golden with melted cheese oozing slightly from the sides, and next to it, a small salad neatly arranged. Smiled, touched. "I do." I took a bite, and warmth spread through me, though I wasn't sure if it was from the food or from the way Lucas was watching me. "This is really good," I admitted. Lucas chuckled. "You sound surprised." "Well, I didn't know you could actually cook." He leaned forward slightly, resting his arms on the table. "I've picked up a few things. You just never noticed." Something about the way he said it made my stomach flip. There was an intimacy in those words, a quiet reminder of how closely he paid attention to me. We ate in comfortable silence, stealing glances at each other between bites. The exhaustion of the day was settling into my limbs, but the kind of exhaustion that felt satisfying, like I had truly accomplished something. After finishing the last bite, I sighed contentedly and leaned back in my chair. "I think this might be the best meal I've had in a long time." Lucas grinned. "That's a little sad, considering it's just a sandwich." I laughed, shaking my head. "It's not about the food. It's about this taking care of me for once." Lucas's smile faded slightly, replaced by something softer, something unreadable. "You take care of everyone else, Mom. You never let anyone do the same for you." I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came out. He wasn't wrong. I had always been the strong one, the one who made sure everything was running smoothly, the one who didn't ask for help. But tonight felt different. Lucas pushed his chair back slightly and stood, taking my empty plate in his before setting them in the sink. I watched him as he turned on the water, rolling his sleeves up again, revealing strong forearms as he rinsed the dishes. He looked so grown up. Man. Not the little boy I had raised, not the teenager who used to argue with me over curfews, but someone who had quietly, steadily become something more. As if sensing my gaze, he turned his head slightly, meeting my eyes over his shoulder. "Something on your mind?" I hesitated. "No, just thinking." Lucas dried his hands and walked back over, standing beside my chair. His fingers brushed against the back of my hand, just barely, but enough for my breath to hitch. "About what?" he asked, his voice quieter now. I shook my head slightly, unsure of what to say. The air between us felt charged, thick with something unspoken. I could feel the warmth of his body standing so close, the way his fingers hesitated, as if waiting for permission to move. And then, Lucas reached out, gently tilting my chin up toward him. The moment stretched, suspended in time. And before I could think, before I could even fully process what was happening, he kissed me. Soft at first, uncertain. Just the faintest press of his lips against mine. But the second I didn't pull away, the second I let myself sink into it, his touch grew firmer, more assured. I could taste the warmth of the tea he had been drinking, the subtle scent of paint still clinging to his skin. His hand cupped my cheek lightly, his thumb brushing against my jaw in the gentlest of touches. It was slow. It was deliberate. And it was completely, utterly real. I wasn't sure how long it lasted. Seconds, minutes, an eternity. But when he finally pulled back, his forehead resting lightly against mine, I felt light-headed, breathless. Lucas's voice was barely above a whisper. I stood up quickly, chair scraping against the floor, my heart slamming against my ribs. I need some air, I said, my voice unsteady. His eyes searched mine, as if trying to understand what I was feeling. But I didn't know what I was feeling. So I turned, grabbing my pack of cigarettes from the counter before making my way to the back door, stepping out into the cool night air. The sky was deep and endless above me. The stars stretched out like scattered diamonds. I took a shaky breath, lighting a cigarette with trembling fingers. The first drag was sharp in my lungs, grounding me. What had just happened? I exhaled slowly, watching the smoke curl up into the night. My lips still tingled, the warmth of Lucas's touch lingering like an imprint against my skin. I had kissed him back. That was the part one couldn't ignore. It wasn't just him. It wasn't just some mistake or a fleeting impulse. I'd felt it too. My hands shook as I brought the cigarette back to my lips. Behind me the door creaked open. I didn't turn around, but I heard Lucas step outside, felt his presence beside me before he even spoke. "You're shaking," he murmured. Closed my eyes. "It's just the cold." It wasn't. Lucas didn't call me out on the lie. Instead he reached out, his fingers brushing against my arm, so lightly I almost thought I had imagined it. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The night air wrapped around us, the only sound the soft burn of my cigarette and the distant hum of crickets. "I'm sorry," he said eventually. I swallowed. "Don't be." I could feel him watching me, searching for something in my expression. "Then why did you run?" I turned my head slightly, meeting his eyes for the first time since I had walked out. "I don't know," I admitted. Lucas took a step closer. "Do you regret it?" I should have said yes. I should have laughed it off, chalked it up to exhaustion or emotions running high. But I couldn't. Because the truth was, I didn't regret it at all. I took one last drag of my cigarette before flicking it into the ashtray. Then I turned, facing him fully. "I don't know," I whispered again, but this time it felt different. 'Cause maybe, just maybe, I wasn't trying to convince myself anymore.